Double game week 34 is finally upon us, and who better to chat to about it and get some great tips and advice than the big man Bakar. Bakar, pleasure to have you back on the channel, mate. It's crunch time, baby. 34 is here.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Hello, welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Yeah, this is the week which we've planned for weeks, really, since game week 28, 30, when the fixtures came out. We've been planning for this week. Now it's the crunch time, as you've mentioned, with double game week 34, double game week 35, double game week 37. Big gains to be made, lots of chips in play. As you've said, this is like the business time where the variance will be very big. And this is where you can sort of differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in today's video, we're going to be looking just at Bakar's team. Obviously, there's going to be advice about just general stuff as well. But in tomorrow's video, Bakar is going to be giving you a perfect free hit draft, the optimal free hit draft, if you are on free hit for 34. So look out for that if you're on free hit. So Bakar, not the best week last week, let's be honest. You know, a poor week for both of us, really. A big kind of almost halving of your rank. Not ideal going into a week like this in 34, where you're going to be competing against people on free hit. Important to note, guys, that Bakar is dead ending into 34 and then wildcarding out in 35. So to run us through the team quickly, you know, what happened, what went wrong, I guess.
From the stretch from game week 30 to 34, it was always going to be a case of damage limitation, having free hitted in 29. You know, I knew that I was going to be up against people who were wildcarding in 30, 31 and people who will be free hitting in 34. So this whole window from 30 to 34 was, you know, period of damage limitation. So I'm not going to look at, you know, just 1 week in isolation.
Yeah.
I had a really good week. The week previous to this, I think I got around 79, 80 points. And that was a lot more than the rest of the pack. And I gained a lot of rank. I've sort of lost it again, but now I'm hoping this week that, let's say, if I can stay on par with the features, or even if I can, you know, even if I lose like 5K of rank, it's fine. So what's important to note is that at the end of game week 29, I was ranked 23.7K.
Okay.
And right now I'm ranked 25.3K. So I've somehow survived. I've just lost 1K in that period, 1.5K, and maybe I can fall by another 4 or 5K. And I would have taken that at the end of game week 29, when we were heading into this period, because I knew that my team was not optimal and I was going to be up against a lot of people who were using a lot of their chips. So it's perfectly fine. I now think, you know, to be very honest, since game week 30, I just meandered my way till 34. I'm just hoping I can get out of this week without too much damage. And from 35, I can then attack the doubles in 35 and 37 with the wild card, with the bench boost, with 15 doublers, hopefully, on the bench boost, and then I can just make my final push for the top 10K.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, you have to remember as well that a lot of people are on obviously game week 30 wildcard and, you know, had kind of perfect teams there, and to have, I guess, overall like a kind of 3 or 4K green arrow since the free hit that went obviously terribly wrong, you got to be pretty happy with that. But yeah, now moving into the week to come, and the team is looking pretty good. Like that's the one thing that I would say, you know, compared to free hitters, you've got a load of doublers in place already and a transfer to make. You know, talk us through your team. What are you thinking?
I think my transfer is fairly straightforward this week, unless something dramatic happens in midweek, or if there are any injuries, or if any Liverpool player really stands out, then I might sort of make a different transfer. But I think with the state of my current team, I will be going from Son to Eze. This is a transfer that I've planned for weeks. It's not just because Eze scored at Anfield. I was fairly high on him before last week as well. I think he's an excellent pick. If I was to pick a Palace mid, I think he's the pick of the Palace attack, the talisman on penalties. I guess I could pick Olise, but I prefer Eze because of the pens and because of the fact that he's more of a goal scorer. The underlying data is sort of similar, but Eze has more goal threat. So I'm just going to go with him. And I just have a feeling that he's slightly better than Olise in terms of minutes as well, with Olise just coming back from injury. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Eze. The other realistic option that I have in my team is to go with the Liverpool mid, actually, because I don't have a third Liverpool. I only have Virgil and Salah. So I can go with Diaz or Jota, let's say, if he does well in midweek.
That'd be aggressive.
It could happen.
Yeah, it could.
I mean, let's say if he starts in midweek, gets a brace, then it could be possible, because, you know, the thing with Liverpool is it's becoming very, very hard to call which 3 Liverpool are the best to own. And I think the key to cracking this game week is going to be decoding the expected minutes, which I think is going to be a huge challenge for a lot of people. the hope was with Liverpool that the closer we get to the Gameweek 34 deadline, we would have a better idea on who the best picks are. But to be very honest, right now, I think it's uh, it's really tough, and your guess is as good as mine. I mean, if I was to guess, maybe Salah, Virgil, and one of Darwin or Diaz, but I can't say this with an iota of security that Darwin will start both fixtures or Diaz will start both fixtures,
No way.
because exactly, because Darwin is now, he's dropped stinkers consecutively, and there's a chance that if Jota comes in or Gakpo comes in and they perform and the attack clicks against Atalanta, who knows what a club decides to go with. So it's really difficult to call. If you have either of them, you just keep them and hope. A lot will depend on the Atalanta game. So at this point in time, I'm not really sure whether either of them is worth buying. They're good holds, but I think for the security of minutes, I would probably go with someone like Eze, unless something dramatic happens and someone scores a hat trick in midweek and I change my mind.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'd be close to saying that Eze is just a better pick than them anyway at the moment, because yeah, obviously he has the minutes, but also just looks to be in slightly better form than them. I mean, the finishing from Liverpool recently, as everyone knows, has been so bad. I saw a great stat about just the number of big chances that their attackers have missed, and it's unbelievable. Obviously, you are going to miss the majority of big chances. That is the nature of football, but which is a weird thing to say, but it is true. But missing the extent of big chances that the likes of Darwin have, obviously in particular, it's just crazy. And I do think that Jota has a decent chance of starting against Atalanta, and if he looks good and comes up after 60, I would get him in there ahead of Darwin and Diaz personally, as one of the three best Liverpool attackers, no doubt about it.
Yeah. It depends on his performance, though.
Yeah,
it depends
of
on
course,
his
of course.
performance.
It
Though,
does, it does. But I think even off the bench, I think he looked sharp the other day. I think he looked like he had more goal threat and more chance to score than the others that were on.
Honestly, if Jota does well, then I sort of might look at it as an opportunity to gain ground on some of the people who are not free hitting,
Yeah.
because I believe that he'll be a very popular free hit pick in that case, because a lot of non-free hitters have already loaded up on Luis Diaz and the likes of Darwin. So I might choose to go different in that case, but again, a lot depends on how this week goes.
Okay, so 10 doublers then, and Haaland. Let's talk about Haaland, because I don't think he's going to be on in many free hits. What do you think about keeping him in the team? As it stands, I presume you'd be benching Zabani and playing Haaland, right? What is your overall thinking?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I expect Bournemouth to concede in both fixtures, and I mean, Haaland is Haaland. I think he should be good for a goal. I don't think he's probably worth selling for a hit or something.
Do you think he's worth selling for free for a doubling forward?
Probably, but only if there are no better transfers to make in your team.
Okay.
So, for example, I saw your team. I think you should be considering something like Sarabia to Eze, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I think
that's the other alternative. Yeah, I know.
Honestly, that might be better than, a lot of people comment on the videos and say that we should be, talking about your team as well. So I've brought your team up as well, and talking about your team, Sarabia to Eze is probably better move for you than Haaland to Mateta, honestly.
Wow. I mean, judging by the predicted points, Sarabia compared to Eze is a good 3.3 ahead, and Mateta is not 3.3 ahead of Haaland. I mean, that is actually pretty close, to be fair, compared to Sarabia and Eze. Mateta at 8.1, Haaland at 6.9. Going by the predicted points, you would say that actually, your transfer makes more sense. The only thing is, it feels weird to transfer out a doubler before a double game week that is in the team, right? What do you think about Sarabia now, just as a pick for people that don't have him and are looking at him as a cheap enabler?
I mentioned this in the previous video as well that we recorded last week, that the time to get Wolves assets was probably in game week 30 when they were playing the likes of Burnley and West Ham at home. I don't really see the appeal of Wolves assets at this point in time when they have Arsenal at home. Bournemouth at home is an okay fixture, especially for the attackers, but I'm not expecting much against Arsenal. So definitely on a free hit, I don't think I'd have any Wolves. Cunha is maybe one worth considering because he's likely to be on penalties, but 8 Nori Sarabia, I don't think I'd have. Because I already own it, Sarabia, I'm happy keeping him, especially because I'll have to take a hit to sell him. And same with Haaland. But for your team, you have a free transfer. So if you're looking to make a transfer in your case, I think Eze is better than Mateta, and I think that probably works better for your team. For my team, I don't see a hit worth taking to sell Haaland or Sarabia unless there are any injuries or something else comes up. I mean, let's assume there's a world where, let's say, Darwin scores a hat trick in midweek and he performs really well. then in that case, I might, end up benching Son and playing Zabarni and going Darwin for Haaland. But again, I think it's a very remote possibility, and I think it's unlikely to happen.
Yeah, I think to be fair, my decision making, I think a lot will depend on midweek minutes as well. Just seeing how Haaland looks in Champions League. I mean, who knows? That could go to extra time, and he could play 120, and then I'll be, FA Cup as well is massive for that, because it's Champions League quarterfinal against Madrid, then obviously a massive game against Chelsea, where Chelsea will be the huge favourites after their absolute battering of Everton last night, and then Brighton away. Let's talk about a Chelsea player that is in pretty good form right now, but resides on your bench as it stands.
Would you still expect Haaland to be benched after his minutes? Let's say if he gets 120 against Madrid, I don't think that's going to happen.
If he gets 120 against Madrid, then he plays full game against Chelsea. Yeah, I don't see why not. Is that the order of the fixtures? Have I got that right? Is it? Yeah, it's Madrid, then it's Chelsea on the weekend, then Brighton is the midweek game. I think so. I don't see why not. I mean, obviously he's likely to start, and of course, but if both those games are very hard, which we obviously can't really predict, but it seems likely. And to be fair, I'm jesting a little bit with Chelsea, but we have done well against City this season. I don't see why he couldn't get a rest against Brighton. Who knows? Brighton aren't in good form right now.
I mean, I wonder how different this conversation would have been had we recorded 24 hours earlier before Chelsea's result. You sound a lot more confident about Chelsea's chances against City.
Well, we are obviously inconsistent FC, but let's talk about Palmer then. He's on your bench. Should you be finding a way to force him into your team because he's the form player in the league right now?
No, he's not even close to making my team.
Okay.
I actually have Zabarni ahead of him in my substitutes order. I think City could possibly keep a clean sheet. I have a good chance of keeping a clean sheet, actually. So this is not a fixture where I want to play Palmer, and irrespective of his form, City aren't Everton. So yeah, it's I'd expect not more than 3-4 points from Palmer in that game.
Sure thing. Okay, and the rest of the team, to be fair, looks pretty solid. We're going to get into your obviously like optimal picks position by position in tomorrow's video on the free hit drafts. So look out for that. I'll be linked at the end of the video. If it's not already out, it will be linked, and then also down below as well if you want to check that out, guys. But the last thing I want to ask you about is captaincy, because according to predicted points, Salah is clearly the best captain. However, his performances of late have been, well, poor in my opinion. But is that lazy analysis? Has actually his performance been okay, and he's just not really been living up to his expected numbers?
I mean, in terms of maybe real life, you can say that he hasn't been great. But in terms of FPL, when you look at his goal threat underlying data, it's still very strong. He's still getting chances, still creating chances, just aren't being taken. The finishing is basically the problem, like you mentioned earlier. Again, when you look at the projected number of goals this week, Liverpool are expected to score the highest number of goals. And Salah is projected to be the highest goal scorer in terms of probability of anytime return. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Salah for me. Saka is a close second, but that's going to be the order for my team.
Okay, Bakar, I just want to round things off with we're talking about 34 and the key players to have really in each position. Obviously you're dead ending, so but your team isn't that perfect, but it does look pretty good. Obviously, if you were on free hit, your team wouldn't be this though. So yeah, who are the key players in each position that we might not be thinking about necessarily that we need to get in, and can we allow ourselves to sell players like Foden and Son 100% that aren't doubling this week, or perhaps aren't even playing?
I think this is a very popular question in terms of who the must-have players to own are this week. And I think, for example, if you have Son, if you have a free transfer, Son to Eze is a move I really like. Obviously it's something I would highly recommend. I think Eze is one of the best players to own this week. Similarly, if you have an Arsenal spot available, then you can go from somewhere like Santa Havertz, or maybe Porro to an Arsenal defender, because again, Arsenal are they're expected to do really well in the fixtures that they have. Wolves away and Chelsea at home, they're really good fixtures. Yeah, I mean, if you have a Liverpool spot available, then going for Virgil is probably the best bet, I personally think, in terms of defense. Even though I haven't really kept a clean sheet, but he still sort of gives me more confidence than Trent for 2 starts. I still think Trent is a bit of a risk with his minutes. I'm not
Okay.
sure he can start like thrice in 7 days. If you want to go different, maybe Robertson, because Simicast hasn't really played that well. So maybe Robertson can play thrice. He could be worth a shot if you want a differential over Virgil. But apart from that, I think it's mostly these players that a lot of people own. And what's important to note is that you have to just ensure that this is a week where, if you're dead ending, you are close as possible to a free hit 34 team. You don't necessarily have to differentiate. For example, a lot of people have Foden. I think if I had Foden and if I didn't have Isaiah, I would take a hit to buy Isaiah personally.
Okay.
But I realized that a lot of people might not be in a position to do it because they're selling Son for Isaiah, or because they already own him. But for example, that's what I would do if I had Foden. I like Haaland. I know that he's explosive, but Foden in an away fixture, he could do well, but I would still rather attack the double and get as close as possible to the free hit 34 team, which will have someone like an Eze from Palace. So that's what I would do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's close. To be fair, like the minutes or the predicted points between Foden and Eze definitely suggest that a hit there would be worth it if you're gonna play them both. I mean, Foden just at 3.8 predicted points. I think that's to do with minutes being a little bit of a doubt as well with that knock that he picked up.
Yeah.
And Eze, yeah, as you said, Eze seems to be flavour of the week. To be fair, he's the one that I'm concerned about. And what you're saying about going Sarabia to Eze is in my mind. I've got to be honest.
You should be doing
I might have to do it. Might have to do it and keep Haaland. But there we go. There we go. That's going to do it. As I said, guys, look out for the free hit video coming tomorrow if you're on free hit. And if you're not anyway, we're going to talk about obviously the optimal players for each and every position in a lot more depth. So yeah, that is it for Bakar's team. But again, look out for tomorrow's episode. Bakar, thank you, my friend. Good luck this week.
Cheers,
it's going to
mate.
be hard, I think, to maintain rank with the free hitters, but you never know. It might be a swingy week. The doubles tend to be. So yeah, let's see what happens, and good luck to all of you guys as well.
Good luck, everyone.